Welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'll be showing you how to make Turkish Pide Bread, which is specially eaten during Ramadan. The recipe with the measurements is in the description box of this video. In a mixing bowl you want to add in the milk, water, sugar and the yeast. Using a whisk any lumps away. You then want to cover and leave this mixture aside for around 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, add in the oil, salt, and gradually start adding in the flour. I'm going to be adding the flour in 3 parts. Once a third of the flour has been added, mix the dough slowly until just combined. If you're not using a stand mixer, you can do this with a wooden spatula. I'm now adding in another third of the flour. Again, you want to bring this together on a low speed. The reason for adding the flour in 3 parts is so you can control the consistency of the dough and not get big lumps. I'm now adding in any remaining flour and bringing this together on a medium speed. If you feel like the dough is too wet, you can add a little extra flour at this stage. However, you need to make sure that you don't add too much, as you don't want a tough, hard dough. If you're using a stand mixer, make sure to scrape down any dough stuck on the sides of the bowl. As you can see, the dough will be quite sticky at the beginning, but once you start kneading, it will become smooth. You need to knead the dough for around 8 to 10 minutes on a low to medium speed. If you're doing this by hand, it will be around the same time. Once the dough starts to look smoother in appearance, you'll know that it's done. After 10 minutes, bring the dough together to form a nice smooth ball. You can test that you've kneaded the dough enough by stretching a small piece between your hands. If it breaks, you need to knead for a bit longer. Grease the bowl with some olive oil and add the dough back in. You also want to add a little oil on top and cover the whole bowl with some cling film and leave to rise for around 2 hours. After 2 hours, the dough should have more than doubled in size. You now want to knock back the air from the dough. You then want to weigh the dough to make it easier when dividing into equal portions. Empty the dough out onto a clean worktop and knead for around 1 to 2 minutes. You then want to divide the dough into portions. It's up to you how many pieces you divide this into. You can make 2 large ones, 4 medium ones, or even a mixture of small and large ones. For this video, I've divided the dough into 2 large and 2 small pieces to show you how the different sizes would look. Form each piece into a ball and leave for around 10 minutes. In a separate bowl, add flour and water. Mix and bring this together into a smooth paste. We'll be using this to spread out the dough. Leave this aside while you roll out the dough pieces. Grab your first piece of dough and start rolling it out. You need to make sure that you don't roll it out too thick or too thin. As a reference, this piece of dough weighed around 375 to 400 grams and I've rolled it out to about 9 inches. When rolling, try to apply an even pressure around the whole circumference, as you don't want thick edges and a thin middle, as this will affect the bake of the bread. Flour a pizza or baking tray lined with some baking paper and place the rolled out dough on top. You then want to wet your hands using the flour paste that we made on earlier, and using the wet hands, spread out the dough into a bigger circle. Then using a fork, you want to create little holes around the whole border. You can use your finger, but I prefer the design created from a fork. You then want to create the same holes across each side of the bread, giving the shape of a square. You also need to remember, if the top of the dough is not as wet, it won't hold these lines. You then need to cover the dough and leave to prove for around 1 hour. In a separate bowl, add an egg yolk, oil and yogurt. Mix well and leave this mixture aside for coating the bread at the end. After 1 hour, the dough should have doubled in size again. You then want to use a fork and go back over the lines. The longer that you leave the dough to prove, the better bake you'll have. I left mine for around 1 hour as I was running short for time, but if you want to leave it for longer, you'll get an even better bake. You then want to brush on the yogurt and egg mixture that we made on earlier, as this will give a really nice brown colour. You then want to finish off by sprinkling on some black seeds and sesame seeds. You then want to bake for around 15 minutes in a preheated oven at gas mark 6. The cooking time will vary depending on your oven, so just judge it accordingly. But once you have a nice brown golden top, you'll know that it's done. You then want to repeat the same process for the other pieces of bread. If you're making some smaller pieces, obviously the cooking time will vary. I've left 15 minutes for the large ones, but the smaller ones will only need about 10 minutes. As you can see, you can also make some really small sized Turkish pies. You can cook these pies at the same temperature as the large ones. You don't need the oven to cool down. I'm just going to be popping them in for about 10 minutes and checking them every few minutes to make sure that they don't overcook. You can cut the bread into small pieces or long strips. It can be eaten as part of a traditional Turkish breakfast or used in kebab dishes. If you cover the bread in foil and keep in an airtight container, you can keep this bread nice and soft for up to 3 days. If you like this recipe, make sure to like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Make sure to press the bell notification so you can be the first to be notified about all my upcoming videos. You can also follow me over on my official Instagram and Facebook page, Foodatives. The link is in the description box of this video.